Part 1. The Night of March 8th. I know it's easy to blame everything on bad luck. But you've got to admit, some people have life on their side. And for others, life just keeps pulling the tablecloth out from under everything they set down. I'm in the second group. About a year ago, I grabbed the end of that tablecloth, and I've been pulling it ever since. It was the evening of March 8th, International Women's Day, if you're not from Eastern Europe. That means one thing: you find girls to hang out with, or you die trying. My childhood friend Max had called me the day before with his usual zero-effort request. "Hey, line up some girls for tomorrow." Max. Let me tell you about Max. We grew up together, same age, but by the time high school ended, we'd gone in completely different directions. I went to university dreaming about making money writing code. Max drifted smoothly into a life of serious crime. He'd been a boxer since childhood, won his region multiple times, took Ukraine a couple of times, and by 18 he was locked into the city's boxing federation. Nearly 2 meters tall, fists like cinder blocks. A machine. I never had to say much when I invited girls to meet him. I'd just send them his Instagram, and they were already sold. At 22, Max had his own apartment and a car. I never asked how he made money, because I knew I wouldn't get an honest answer. Some things you leave outside the brackets, even with your best friend. His new place was about 10 minutes from mine, but March turns 10 minutes into 20. Every gleaming patch of asphalt could suddenly swallow your entire shoe, like the city was running a charity drive for wet socks. The neighborhood Max had moved into was this strange mix of dying 90s and their resurrection. The kind of place where the strongest survived, and now spread outward from crumbling dormitories and 9-floor panel blocks. Whether he chose it for the cheap rent or for some darker reason, I never asked. He lived there now. I found the entrance to his building, stepped into the stairwell, and stopped. The smell hit me immediately. Gas. Strong gas. I once heard that in high enough concentrations, gas speeds up metabolism so violently that miners caught in pockets of it would start to sweat uncontrollably. That's what happened to me. I was already sweating from rushing, but now it was something else. By the time I got to Max's door, the smell was so thick I could feel a cold coating forming on my teeth. Max had just woken up. We had somewhere to be in 10 minutes, and he was shuffling between rooms in slippers like a man with nowhere to be in 10 years. As he slowly came to life, he told me about the night before. Screams from the apartment next door. Something heavy slamming against a door on his landing, like someone trying to break through. Then, around midnight, the gas smell appeared. Emergency services eventually cut gas to the whole building, but if anything, the smell had gotten stronger. And now, just as Max was finally waking up, the banging started again. It was so violent that the mirrors in his hallway vibrated. The wardrobe doors slid back and forth in their tracks. Max stepped out onto the landing in his house slippers and started hammering on the neighbor's door with his palm, the ring on his finger ringing through the whole stairwell. The door was one of those cheap Chinese hollow metal jobs, the kind with porous cardboard inside. He was already out loud debating whether to just kick it in and rearrange the face of whoever had been making noise all night, or give them one more chance. We stood there for a moment, listening to the silence inside. Then Max shrugged. Time to get ready and go. I went to use his bathroom while he finished getting dressed and polished his shoes. That's when the banging started again, this time inside Max's apartment itself. The hits were so powerful that the water in the toilet bowl spread outward in rings from the center. "You piece of—" Max shouted, and bolted out the front door. I thought, whoever's on the other side of that door is about to have a very bad evening. I zipped up, flushed, and then a scream. Not just a scream, a wail. Full, raw, beyond the edge of sanity terror. The kind of sound that rewires something in your chest. Max was screaming. Then the lights went out. Part 2. The apartment. I've known Max most of my life. I know what he is. The kind of guy where, if I ever had trouble somewhere, a club, a bar, the street, I only had to say his name and people would apologize with fear in their eyes. People respected him. People were afraid of him. Hearing him scream like that, hearing the utter, abandoned helplessness in that sound, I was genuinely terrified. I turned on my phone's flashlight and ran out into the stairwell. The screaming was coming from the neighbor's apartment. The door was now open. I stepped inside. Something crunched under my shoes with every step. Small, dense, like walking across a beach covered in shells. My light caught millions of tiny, glinting reflections suspended in the air. Something thin kept catching my face, like invisible branches, invisible vines. I pushed forward, thinking about what I'd find in that room. Max was standing in the center, both hands pressed over his face. "I can't see anything," he kept saying, over and over, in a low, panicked loop. "I can't see anything." At first, I felt something like relief. He was standing. He was whole. He was alive. Then my eyes adjusted. Then I saw. Crosses. Not a few. Not a wall decoration. Every single millimeter of that apartment was covered in crosses. Small ones, medium ones, body crosses, enormous ones. Layered like scales, one on top of the other, covering every wall so densely the room resembled a stalactite cave glittering under my flashlight. They hung from the ceiling on strings, arranged like garlands. They were glued to the wardrobe, the bed frame, the window glass, the ceiling. The floor was buried in them. So many tiny ones that it was like walking across a metallic beach. And then I saw the grave crosses. Wooden, cemetery grade, driven directly into the floor. The same ones were bolted to the ceiling. And then, in the corner, what I'd first taken for a wardrobe, I saw the cage. A cage made of crosses, lashed together. I didn't want to look at it, but I did. Just a moment longer than everything else. And in that moment, I saw what was on the floor inside the cage. Scratch marks. Deep, enormous, geometrically wrong. The kind that, even with only surface-level knowledge of the natural world, told me immediately, no animal made these. No human made these either. I grabbed Max by the arm and we walked, shuffled, toward the door. He kept repeating, "I can't see anything," the whole way out. The tiny crosses under our feet crunched like a beach. Outside, we got to Max's car. He wasn't coming back to himself. There was no driving. Around us, total silence. No traffic, no voices, not a single sound. The building loomed behind us in the dark. It looked wrong. Like something insane had built it as a prop for its own private ceremony. And then I noticed, in the whole neighborhood, in every building around us, there was no light. Not a single window. except one. One lit window in Max's building, in the apartment right next to his. I didn't want to understand what that meant, but I did. Then the lit square expanded, several meters in every direction, and the world came apart in a concussive blast. Car alarms went off all around us. The building exhaled. I thought I heard, somewhere above, the tiny metallic rain of falling crosses. A gas explosion. That was what the investigators would call it. Max kept repeating, "I can't see anything," as the ambulance arrived. Part 3. The beginning of the end. Max survived the blast, but he didn't come back. His mother called me. She brought him home. He never regained his sight. A few days later, I visited him. The apartment smelled like hospitals and a specific kind of human grief. The kind you can identify before you even see the person. When I saw Max, I knew immediately. I don't know how to explain how you know. You just do. One look and something confirms it. He was going to die. He was talking, but not to me. He was assembling a puzzle of time, and the pieces wouldn't stay in order. One second he asked if I'd lend him a Nirvana tape. Then he said he needed to get his tires changed tomorrow. Then he asked me to go ask his uncle in the kitchen if they could play music louder. His uncle had died in the late 90s. I leaned in when his mother was busy with dishes. I whispered about the sulfur smell, about the screaming, about what he saw. Max spoke through me as if I wasn't there, as if sound just passed through the room without catching on anything. On the chair in front of his bed was a bowl. In the bottom of it, 3 small cubes of potato. I stared at them the whole time. 3 small dice. A bad roll. A week later, his mother texted me in Viber. Max died. No period. No emotion. Maybe she'd already known, in some way, since the day he chose his path. Maybe she'd had years to prepare. At the funeral, she looked at the body in the coffin the way you look at something you already processed. Max was my best friend. We had a brutal sense of humor together, and I wouldn't have been surprised if this had all been some elaborate, horrible prank. For the first month, I genuinely expected him to show up laughing, pointing at my face. "See? Got you. Still here." But he was gone. Actually, really, permanently gone. And once that settled in, I stopped understanding life. Part 4. The Crosses. A few weeks after the funeral, I started waking up every single night. Not from nightmares, from something worse. A primal, wordless, bottomless terror. The kind that doesn't need a reason or an image, just raw, ancient fear, flooding you from the moment consciousness returned. Drinking didn't stop it. Not sleeping at home didn't stop it. Every night, without fail, and each time it got worse. I started seeing shadows moving at the edges of rooms, hearing footsteps behind closed doors, feeling the air in my room go electric. I'd freeze, afraid to move, and wait in the corner with the light on until morning. Then I could finally leave the room. Sleeping during the day didn't help. After a few hours, the same thing would start, and then the night would become endless. The terror wouldn't release me until dawn. During one of those endless nights, I picked up a marker. I don't really know why. I drew a cross on the wall, and immediately felt better. So I drew another one, and another. By the time I stopped, it was morning, and the entire wall was covered. For the next week, silence. Nothing. Then one night in May, during a thunderstorm, I woke up screaming. The rain was hitting the window in unnatural pauses, like a film crew with a hose. I turned on the light and saw that every cross I'd drawn on the walls was running, melting. The moisture in the air had dissolved the marker lines. They dripped down the wall like a face with ruined makeup. I grabbed the marker and started filling in the gaps frantically, but they kept flowing. I could watch them disappear in real time. The walls were bare and unprotected, and behind the door I could hear something. I picked up a knife instead. I carved crosses into the wallpaper, into the furniture, into the floor. I came back to myself at dawn. My palms were covered in broken blisters, weeping and burning. But for another week, nothing. It kept escalating. I went to the church and spent several thousand hryvnias on crosses. The hunched priest gave me a look, clearly imagining what kind of party required this many crucifixes. I made up something about charity work and ran home. I covered the walls with small crosses and had weeks of peace. Then a terrible night. More crosses. Peace. Another terrible night. More crosses. I was a programmer. I called C++ C cross cross now, as a private joke no one would ever hear. At some point the carved wounds weren't healing. My legs, my torso. I started pressing heated metal crosses against the infected areas to cauterize them. It helped. The crosses on the walls seemed to approve. Then I realized the sounds were coming from inside my body, from my throat. A low echo, like something scraping stone in a cave. I stood for long minutes in front of mirrors, partially visible between the crosses, watching my own open mouth. The echo deepened. I had planned for everything, reinforced every surface, filled every gap, and I had forgotten the most basic vulnerability. They could come from inside me. So I started swallowing crosses. Small ones first, then larger. They scraped my throat going down. I understood the logic perfectly. The neighbor in that apartment had thought he had done enough. He had gotten complacent. I would not make his mistake. Part 5. The End Game. My apartment, over the course of a year, had become a fortress. The hallway was so dense with cemetery crosses that I could barely walk through it, which felt exactly right. I had recreated the cage from the neighbor's apartment, lashing crosses together with plastic zip ties. I built what I thought of as my doomsday device, a large cross on which I had mounted a smaller cross, and from that, a smaller one still, all the way down to a tiny baptismal cross no bigger than a fingernail. A matryoshka of crosses. A cross ryoshka. I aimed it at the cage. Something was inside the cage now. I could hear it scratching the floor whenever I left the room. The sulfur smell had returned. When I felt like they were trying to breach my door, I'd run and kick it as hard as I could. That kept them back. For a while. I read somewhere that when the serial killer Onoprienko was operating, his stated goal was to mark crosses with his murder locations on a map of the country. Apparently he succeeded. I need more crosses. I've been taking them from the cemetery. I know which graves to avoid, the ones on sloped plots, on bad weather days, the ones that hold on. Those pull at your feet, like the earth doesn't want to let go. But some give easily. One firm kick and the post comes up like a baby tooth. Brought them home, stacked them in the hallway like sunflowers. No one stopped me. I passed a police patrol once, carrying a freshly pulled cemetery cross with dirt still falling off it. The officers turned sideways, tucked their chins into their collars, looked away. A couple of older women at the tram stop just started grazing around me, staring at the middle distance. No one said a word. I'm the last sane person left. I've been thinking about my own cross lately. It's somewhere out there, probably in storage, in the dark, leaning against others it's never met. A nice lindenwood one, lacquered, the kind that opens up its smell in full sun. Waiting for me. I'll find it. I'll bring it home myself. I know exactly where it'll go. At the head of my bed. Then I'll lie down and finally get some rest.